I talked to Scott. So you want to go one way around? All the rest of it, just get it down.
Alright, so for my group, if anybody doesn't know, I'm Will DeWitt. I'm the DPW superintendent here. I've been here for almost 9 years. My primary duties are the farm, the outside maintenance, the water, and the sewer. So while we're here, because it gives you a good visual, I just want to show you a little bit of our responsibilities. All these lawns, all the sidewalks, pavement, that's all part of what we take care of. I currently have one full-time employee, myself, and then we have a part-time employee that supervises the inmates that's employed over at the jail. So we do get inmates. We're going to head this way. We do get inmates out. It can average from 3 individuals to 8 individuals on a really good day if we have a lot, depending on what kind of work we have. So every morning I evaluate needs to go on, and then I assign everybody jobs, and we go and try to get as much of the work done as possible and pick up the next day. Here, this nursing home's a 24/7 operation. The sheriff's department has dispatch over there, 24/7 operation. The jail, as you'll see when we go down, 24/7 operation. So plowing has to stay on top, so emergency vehicles can come in, and 3 to 4 shift changes, depending on the building, a day also go on there. The water system is up on the hill up that way. It's a gravity-fed system. Comes down to the county, then also goes down into Ossipee Corner village down there. We have close to 40 customers down there. And then this whole complex has its own sewer system. So both the water and the sewer have to have special licensing from the state in order to run those. We have several batches of testing on both sides that have to be done. Some every other week, some once a month, some once a quarter, depending on what they're testing for. Each one of these buildings has different septic tanks, which have to be pumped. It also flows down to our sewer system down there where it gets treated. We have tanks down there that have to be pumped. The water is treated before it goes out back. Then there's twice a year, there's groundwater testing that is done to make sure that we're treating the water properly before it goes back out into basically a big leach field out there, so to speak. Any other questions I can answer while we're walking around? We're going to head down first. Yes, sir.
In terms of employees, so you said it's just you and
one other full-time employee.
Full-time employee.
Yep.
And it's just exterior.
Right. Pretty much anything.
Do they have maintenance people for the interior?
Yes, sir. It's a different department.
Different department, but do they work in the wintertime for snow plowing at all?
No.
What's this for?
Just my department.
Oh,
This year's good.
2 people have to man 24/7.
That's what's happening to us this year. Last year we had 3, but the budget got cut and a person got laid off, so now we're down to 2, and we have to try to keep up with it. Ken, county administrator, has offered, we get in a bind and real bad snow, that he'll help me out the best he can. But that's what we're going to be trying to work with this year.
And is anything contracted out?
No. A culinary academy that was going to be in there, but that didn't make it, I guess. Currently they use it for the pellet boiler system, and the laundry for the nursing home is all done in there. The inside maintenance department has storage in there also, tool rooms, things of that nature that they do, and some offices in there. But I believe the majority of these 2 wings, besides storage, I don't think there's a lot of activity that takes place in those at this point. So there are potentials. I know a couple months ago when we did one of these tours with Mr. Kendall was here, and there was some talk about, could this be converted to do processing vegetables or anything on a larger scale. I'm sure some of you that have been paying attention to what's going on with this committee, and maybe Susan could tell you more about that. But there's a possibility he talked about being and Steve's with our group too, so he could really fill you in about being a food hub possibly.
Yes.
Here, and this portion of the building may be able to accommodate that, possibly, was one of the ideas.
I guess too, people that have been following what's been happening, about 4 years ago, there was a big movement around to make this into a transitional housing for veterans or for a shelter for whatever, and that has not worked out. That's off the counter at this point.
Okay. Any other questions about the old nursing home or comments, concerns? Steve, you have anything?
We'll have an opportunity afterwards, I think, hopefully to sit down and to flesh this out a lot more, and more questions and so forth as well as to where the committee is at this point in time.
Okay. We're going to head straight over here, and then we're going to bank a left into the next field. That's where we have some of our blueberry production. We used to have a garden over there prior to all the cuts, and that may be going back to hayfield at this point. We did a lot to the nursing home, especially last year. We got a vacuum sealer that in the jail started freezing and vacuum sealing them over in the jail to preserve them for the winter.
Okay.
Prior to that, and to accompany that, we have some wholesale local food stands that we complement their business by offering them to them, which helps draw in people to buy other things from them.
Great.
So
That's what I wanted to hear.
yep. Also, a lot of this tall grass you can see in here was a garden that we had going. It sat this year with nothing in it. We'll see another garden up there that we put a little bit in it because we got some donations this year, but no labor and whatnot. Really, we didn't really pick anything out of it. In the past, outside of the nursing home, we donate a lot to the food banks within the area for all of our extras. Yes, they do. But as you can see, we have several operations we're doing here, and I'll be taking you down to the wood operation. So as the manager, I got to balance the amount of money coming out of here versus the amount of money we make on wood. So when I only have a certain labor force, what should I put it into? And it's been going more to, oops, sorry, let's cut right in here. Hay production this year was really good. We got more bales this year than we have since 2012 was the last year that we got as much hay as we did this year. And for a dry summer that we had, that was really good. We sell it all to local people. A lot of people that have 2-3 horses come in and buy it. We do deliver. We offer a deliver service for an upcharge. But almost, I'd say, 95% of the hay goes within 20 miles of this location that is purchased.
So horse farmers like this hay? I see a lot of clover.
Yeah, they haven't had too much problem. The clover really came back this year due to the change in fertilization we did. They don't like to have it too heavily clovery,
Right.
but they didn't have much complaints. I mean, hay is hard to get in this area.
Yep.
So,
That's for sure.
so here's the blueberries. We'll stand over here so you can look down and I can show you what we're talking about over here.
How many varieties of blueberries are there?
That we have here, we
Yeah.
have 4 varieties.
Okay.
So we have these first 3 rows are our mature plants. They've been here, I think Commissioner Sorensen would know, but I want to say they were started probably 12 to 13 years ago, some of them that have been blocked in. And then these ones we planted over here in 2011. These about 350 mature plants used to be located up behind the old nursing home. And with the construction of the new nursing home, we had to pull them all out, bring them down here and replant them. And then the following year, we planted about 800 little ones. These are primarily Patriots and Spartans are the varieties names. And then down here we have 2 rows of Patriots, 2 rows of Spartans, 2 rows of Toro, and 2 rows of Duke are the 4 varieties. We try in the past, this year, budget wasn't there to do it, but in the past, we have an irrigation system set up. These all have drip irrigation going down them. We put sawdust on them for the mummy berry. We try to fertilize them, and then every spring, I usually come through and prune them to prune them down. And then we try to weekly keep it mowed in here the best we can. Once the berries start coming on, it's kind of hard to get the inmates to weed whack in between them because they start hitting the bushes and there goes the berries on the ground. So once we get close to the berries ripening, I try to tend to hold off on that because I don't want to waste the berries.
When will these newer plants be coming into full production?
They have another couple years to come in full production. They did have quite a few this year, comparatively. Every year, they're on their 5th year now, so every year up to 10 years will be their when they finally hit full maturity. Okay. So they have a few more years, but every year they'll gain a certain percentage up to that maturity level.
Okay, all right. So what you're looking at then in the next 5 or 6 years, really increased production here as far as berries go?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The other problem I think we had this year is we had a problem with a bear down here, I believe, eating a lot of berries. Because as soon as they'd come ripe, you'd come down here, and then the next day they would just be stripped right out.
It wasn't a problem for him.
No, not for him. The year before, he was eating my sweet corn over here, so he's found that this is a good area for him to.
Dining hall, huh?
Right, good dining hall, exactly. So, is there any questions that I can answer about blueberries or production that we did here?
Next spring, what would you prune off this one here?
Off this one here? I'd grab some of this low stuff down here to try to make the bush come up a little bit more. And then if there's any winter kill that comes on it, or also this is over here, sorry Ed, this is a witch's broom, which will come in right here. And so I'll go through and I'll cut that back. Sometimes I have to cut a huge chunk of the bush out to get them out. Those spread back and forth from fir trees to blueberries seasonally. And so we try to cut all those out because those will take over the bush eventually. And then the sawdust helps with the mummyberry. That's our two biggest threats down here. Not to leave out the fact that we're getting more late season bugs that are coming into the berries now too. Did that answer your question, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Any thoughts about dealing with the bear problem, or is that something you just got to deal with?
The thought that we're looking to go towards for next year is I want to put an electric fence all the way around this and see if that can help deter him if he touches the electric fence not to want to come into the berries. So do a perimeter fence of running 2 or 3 lines and put maybe a solar charger out here because we don't have power. We got water but no power, and see if that will deter him from eating as many berries.
All right.
Okay.
One question about the berries and about the hay.
No, that's what they did with
Are you selling this at current market prices? Are you underselling other producers, or are you basically going whatever the market will bear? That's what you're charging.
Whatever the market is, that's what we charge.
Okay, all right.
We don't undercut.
Okay.
Whatever the going rate is what we charge. Okay. Sometimes, depending on when it comes to our firewood, we'll get over to that here in a minute. But coming to our firewood, generally we've set a standard price. A lot of times in the summer and fall, that price seems a little high, and in the wintertime, once snow hits, a lot of times, not all of them, but some different people in that business will up their price a little bit more, and then we're a little more even lined with them. But sometimes in the summer and the fall, we're a little bit higher than everybody. So it really depends on the time of the year, because we don't tend to adjust our prices once we set them for the year. Traditionally, we've pretty much held them at that rate.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, how do you find that this operation is competing with your own? Okay.
More than here,
Okay.
but still 10 to 15,000
Yeah.
income.
Okay.
Pick your own.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
So how does that income compare, say, with what you got from vegetables? So if you compared your income from the hay production versus what you essentially realized from growing vegetables, is there a difference, or can you actually think about it in that fashion? So you said you did hay where you'd grown vegetables before, right?
Correct. This year we.
So how does the income from the hay sales compare with what you would have done from growing vegetables?
Well, per acre, vegetables are going to be much higher income level than hay is any day of the week, no matter what kind of vegetables you're growing in there. But you also have a lot more labor invested into your vegetables to get that income, and you have the expenses of the the seed, the fertilizer, the black plastic, the drip tape, all those things, and then being able to take it out and deliver it to where it needs to go versus the hay. We can have a lot less labor to get more of it in. So that's the difference of why that's happened at this point. Doesn't mean that there's not room for many more vegetables to grow here. There's a lot of different potentials, and I think that's why this committee has been formed and hoping to get a lot of the public involved, is there's a lot of potential here. It's just, I think we as the people need to decide which direction we want it to go in, and once that's decided, then hopefully I can manage towards that direction, and I think that's a lot of what we're trying to accomplish here, in my opinion anyways. So what had happened was the head chef in there would look at, let's say, Cisco or the places that he buys from, find those prices and tell me, and that's what I would charge him. So theoretically, we were getting some money. But now, this is where I say both. When you look at the big picture, if the money doesn't, in my opinion, if the money doesn't leave this complex, then it's not, yes, you have the cost and the seeds and all those things, I understand all that, but the cost of those vegetables, if that money doesn't leave this complex, it stays here, then to me that's a savings to the taxpayers as a whole, because we've kept it, we produced it here on the complex and we kept it here on the complex. So we're getting that money, what Cisco would have gotten paid. On paper, we're getting that to show our value, but then we're turning that money right back to the so-called general fund. So it's just going in a circle, so it's not leaving the complex. So that's why, in my opinion, we're saving,
you
outside
don't have
of
freight, packaging.
Exactly, and you have the fresh product right here. So that's a hot topic of question for several people here, and they'll all have different opinions, but that's my opinion. When we keep it in-house and produce it here, I think we're saving the taxpayers.
Amen.
And it's healthy.
25 years ago, we used to grow a lot of potatoes here, and most of them went into the nursing home. But when they started coming out with these number 10
Tubs.
cans of potatoes, all peeled and everything, nursing home didn't want to buy any they had to peel. They'd rather buy it in a can and feed it that way. We have beautiful storage. We kept them for a long time through the winter. People used to buy them.
Was it truly a
Don't go anywhere.
savings?
What's that?
What's the cost of peeling a potato versus buying it in cans? I mean,
Well, that's
What's the number?
It's the labor.
It's the labor.
The labor in the kitchen. They don't have to peel them. They just take the can open up the can, pour them in, that's it.
So where we were headed last year before we kind of got derailed was taking that labor and having it done by the inmates in the jail.
Right.
So we got the vacuum sealer and stuff, because the cooks are saying we just need to cut something open and dump it so we can cook, because they don't have a lot of labor over there. So our goal was, okay, let's produce it, working with the jail, let's preserve it, so all they have to do is cut a bag open and dump it. That was our first year. Last year was our first year that we started that program, and we were trying to run that program, ramp that program up. But that all went to pieces this year on that. So there are potentials to, like Commissioner Sorensen says, they want it nice, but can we do a few more steps here to get it to them in that form? And that's what we were trying to accomplish. So, there's always hope for the future that maybe we can get back to that and try that, get that program back on track.
Is that actually on county property?
Yeah.
I had part of that in my head.
Run by the
That would have kept the rain off, and I'm glad that I have 20. We're not ready for this.
To fill you in, we're going to go into the barn. I'm going to talk about the hay production. As we're going along, you're hearing me talk a lot about labor and what we need to be able to do things and how many people we need to do these things. And so the jail has a classification system on how they classify the inmates on whether they're able to come out or not. There could be 60 to 100 people in there, and there may only be 5 to 8 that are classified that can come out to work for me. So there's a difference there, and they have criteria they have to meet. So the jail has worked very well with us in the last couple of years, and to help do that a little better, this year, this outside area where it's fenced in, we were able to bring some wood into there, and he had a classification of inmates that couldn't come on this side of the fence, but they could stand on that side of the fence and bag wood. So we, with their help, that produced another 1,000 to 1,500 bags of wood at, $300 to $350 a bag of wood. that really helped us a lot. It wasn't every day. Sometimes he didn't have staff to watch him, but when he did, he would help us out the best he could, and that was a big help to us, and an example of how much teamwork that goes on within the different departments here on the complex, and that's a good example. I just wanted to mention that while we were going by.
No question.
Yes, sir.
What, as a rule, and I realize this can vary with the makeup of the, but as a rule, what percentage of the inmates are actually out here working on the farm?
I would say that would be a better question for Jason, but or if any of the commissioners are in the group that might be able to comment. But I want to say they vary between 70 to 100. They've had a little higher numbers this year because
that's the total population.
Total population.
Okay.
But you have pretrial and sentenced.
Yep.
And probably 60% or more are pretrial, which means they can't come out yet.
Okay.
They haven't been found guilty. And then out of the sentence population, like I said, I'm lucky to get 5 to 6, maybe 8 on the high number of that. So, I don't know what that percentage would be, but
about 10% then,
or less.
or less.
Or less.
It's actually out here working.
Right.
Okay. That's
I would say it's somewhere in a single-digit number, probably on a percentage.
All right.
So.
If we talk about hours, how many hours did they work?
Over a year, the inmate population has grown from 2.5 people a day to, I think, 3.5 people a day, if you were to average it over the entire year's time.
Okay. All right.
That's your number.
Okay.
There are days that Will's fortunate to have 5 and 6 people.
Yeah.
But if you were to
Yeah.
average it, that's Jason's average number.
Okay.
And the other thing that we're unique to go along with that, a unique position that we're in, and Ken and myself have been trying to convey to the commissioners in the last few weeks, is in the last couple of weeks they've started a lot more new programs in there for the inmates, which are great because those individuals are going to be back into our community, but that affects my staff or my amount of inmates that I have out here to do this kind of stuff. Right. So it's a delicate balance that we're trying to figure out, and it's going to take a little bit of time to see how those programs are going to affect the amount of people that can come out here. So we're kind of in this gray area with that too. That's going to.
I think that's interesting information. Thank you, Will.
Yes, sir.
Are they compensated?
No, sir. They have most of them have an opportunity to get good time. So, give me an example. If a gentleman gets 12 months, most of the time, if he's well behaved, he'll be out of here in 8 months. He gets 4 months worth of good time. Now, if he is deemed to work out here, but he refuses, every day that he refuses, the superintendent takes away a good time. So they have incentive to come out here on that, and they're not compensated. About a cup of coffee is about the best I can do for them, and once in a while on a nice hot day and we've put up 1,500 bales of hay, I'll go out and buy a tub of ice cream out of my own pocket and feed some ice cream to the guys. But that's about all they get for compensation. Most of it's just but to be honest with you, probably 98 out of 100 enjoy to come out. We're different. We're more of a working atmosphere out here. We treat them like they're an employee because that's part of the transition for them, and so they have to work together. It's a big, we sat down just a couple weeks ago talking to some of these guys because there's a lot of talk from several people in the community at these different meetings, and what's it mean? What do the inmates get out of it? So my staff, reading the newspapers, they hear this stuff, so they sat down and talked with a lot of inmates, and they said, what do you get out of coming out of here? And one of the number one things that a lot of them told us was the fact of working as teamwork and having to work with other people and having a boss that they have to listen to. A lot of them don't have that teamwork ability when they're out on the streets. They never had to do it, and that's why some of them have ended up in here. And a lot of them, when they sit down and honestly talk to me, that's what they'll tell me, is that teamwork ability to work with other people and to actually have to listen and be accountable to somebody is something that they really learn in the 3, 4, up to 6 months that they're out here. So, sorry, did you have a question, sir?
Yeah, do you know if the pre-sentence prisoners can volunteer to come out on their own if they wanted to, or I don't know what the legalities are?
I don't know on that. I really don't know. That would be a question for the superintendent. I believe, for the most part, no, outside of here. Where I'm not sure, and that's a great question, is behind that gate.
Right.
I think some of them, and I don't know this for sure, so please don't take this, for sure. But I think a couple of them we had some ladies out here this year that were pre-trial, and they volunteered to come out here and bag wood, but they couldn't come on this side of the fence. And like I said, the superintendent would be able to give you a lot straighter answer on that than I can.
Explain to us how you got your expertise in working with this population.
Sure. So yes, to fill in quickly what she asked, we do evaluate the inmates. We put them on certain, I'll talk to them. I start to learn what their skills are out on the streets. We have some that come in here that are good mechanics. We have some that are great carpenters. We have some that do all kinds of different things. And some are just good general laborers. Some don't even know how to push a lawnmower, and I got to show them how to start a lawnmower. And there's a wide variety, so you learn talking to them, watching them, and everything, and then we'll gradually step them up. And if I'm working on a piece of machinery, and I think he has good mechanical skills, I may at some point say, hey, you want to come give me a hand with this? And then as he's here longer, I may start to step back and just supervise and watch him, see how he's doing the stuff, because they take pride in that kind of stuff. And my background, to answer your question, is after high school, I went in the military as military police for 5 years. After my service, I met my wife, who was from New Hampshire in the service. We moved back here. I was a correctional officer down at the state prison in Concord for a year before I took a job as the assistant manager down there for almost 3 years, and then was fortunate, I like to say I was fortunate, to get hired here. And I've been here for almost 9 years, and I've really enjoyed this job and enjoy the people I work with and the job I get to do. I mean, look at this view that we have out here. When you're out here at 5 o'clock in the morning cutting hay and watching the sun come up over there, to me there's nothing better of a job to be doing. So
I would just say we're very fortunate to have someone with your particular broad range of skills to...
Thank you. I also grew up on dairy farms, so that's where I get my farming from. I grew up in the Midwest on dairy farms. I didn't add that part in, but yes. Come on in on the wind, so I can just briefly talk about the hay business. Would it be easier if I stood on that side for you?
No, the light's better here.
Okay. So this is what we call the hay barn. In the summertime, all the hay is stored in here. In the wintertime, as we're getting ready to right now, I'm doing the winter maintenance right now on all our hay machinery. In the next probably 2 weeks, it'll all be in this barn that we put it in for winter storage. This barn, when I first started here, it had that door right there was in front of that truck, and there was a wall right here. And how they did the hay back then is they cut it, they tedded it, they raked it, and they baled it, just like we do now. Only difference was they baled it all out on the ground, and all the inmates would have to go out, pick it up off the ground, put it in the truck. They'd back the truck in here and stack it. Difference in my experience where I grew up, several different techniques, and the most economical one that I thought for this operation is we hitch a wagon to the baler, and I have 2 inmates ride on that wagon. As the bale comes off, one grabs it, hands it to the other guy, that guy stacks it on the wagon. Once the wagon's full, we took this wall down and moved the door over so we have a drive-through door. The hay comes in this center. We have pallets down, they stack it. This year we had it all the way up to the ceiling, not even through the rafters, up into the ceiling to fit it in here. And then the wagon drives right on back out. That's how we have done it here. So when they do it, we're doing it the old way. The first year I was here, if you had a group of 10 inmates picking up, bringing in, and stacking 700 bales in here, they thought the end of the world was coming that night. I mean, they just couldn't move and everything else. With this new way, I can have probably 6 inmates, and we can do 1,000 to 1,100 bales in a day, and we can do it day in and day out, and they're not wore out and they're ready to go back to work the next day, because the 2 are riding on the wagon, and then the 4 are stacking in here. So it takes me almost 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the thickness of the hay, to fill a wagon. So if the 4 in here can unload a wagon in, let's say, 20, 30 minutes, now they get a 15 to 30 minute break to sit by the fan while they're waiting for the next one to come. So it keeps, and the guys on the wagon they're at a consistent pace, but they're not killing themselves. So it allows us to get more work done with less people. Gentleman here asked me about fertilization with the fields, and if we have to fertilize every year. We do have to fertilize every year here, and I'm hoping with this change of fertilization pattern that we've done, that after 3 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, we can start going on an every other year basis, because we're putting a different type of fertilization into the ground versus what we were doing before. And so we're doing it a fall versus a spring. And what we're doing, I'm hoping that'll change, because once you build up in the soil, it'll last a little bit longer than having to. Chemical fertilizers that we were using, I mean, they got a short spurt that they help the grass for the most part, and then that's about it. You're not really building your soil as well. Especially on drought years, it's even worse. If you start building your soil and you get these drought years, the moisture will be held in that soil to give you better second crop numbers. We had anywhere from 50% to 100% more numbers on our second crop this year than we did last year. And that's just 1 year of changing the fertilization pattern. So that's kind of what we do with that. The next group's bumping into, yes sir, you got a question?
Do you do thorough testing as well on a regular basis?
Yes sir. Our regular basis has gotten a little bit off due to time and budgets, but generally I was doing it every other year, so that way I could implement the changes that they suggested, give it a year to see how it works, and then do it again. And I primarily started with our high production fields first, and trying to get them, the higher production ones, up to max peak, and then bring the other ones along with it. So that's where we did with that. But we do them usually every other year.
Okay.
This last 2 years they've been being done because we changed the fertilization. They're being done every year.
Okay.
What do you fertilize with?
We have this year, in the past we've been using urea, and we've also done like, I think it's a 36012. So basically it's got some nitrogen and some potassium in it. We're always high in phosphorus, like any of the farmers in here know that we always have that in the land. So we're doing that. We've switched up to doing a wood ash mixture now. So the wood ash is helping bring our pH up, which is a big problem. For those that don't know a lot about growing, you can put as much nutrients that you want to the ground, but if it's not within that proper pH level, the plant's not going to absorb it. So that's where we've been trying to bring that back up to get in the optimal range for stuff.
Do you get the wood ash from the biomass plant production?
Yes, we've last year we got it from RMI.
Will, how many bales would this barn hold?
Theoretically, I put on this side all the way up to here, up in the ceiling. We had about 2,000 there at one point this year, and another just shy of 2,000 there, trying to leave the center open. But if we fill the center, then you can have 2, 4, 6 to 7 probably in here. So again, that also you have to, you can only stuff so much in here, and then you got to be moving it out. So we do deliveries, and we do have people come in. This year we had a lot more people coming in the past because we didn't have the labor to go out and deliver like we had in the past. So we had a lot of people coming in, picking up deliveries, and trying to coordinate that with when I'm going to do my next cut to make sure we have room for it in the barn, because I don't want to have 1,000 bales sitting out outside and not be able to get it inside, and we have rain coming. So we have to always put it in.
You just throw the hay here short term.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, it's usually gone, but before we just barely get it in and it already goes out.
Right. And all this is gone also. It just hasn't been delivered yet. Our delivery schedule this year has really backed up because the guy that primarily does it now has to backfill with the gentleman that we lost.
I've been watching it temperature because it looks back kind of tight.
Yeah, it's dry enough. It's fine. Yeah, I don't worry about it. That could sit there all winter and it won't have a problem. If you put it in too wet, then yes, we'd have a problem. But
I wouldn't bet my hay.
Well, how does your production compare this year to last?
This year to last, last year we did 5,129 bales out of 2 cuts. This year we were 7,779 bales out of 2 cuts. So that's what, almost a 50% increase.
And it was a dry season.
It was a dry season again this year.
So we have a potential for more.
Yes. Yeah. If we keep on the fertilization schedule that we've worked out now, I think that we could be hitting close to 10,000 bales probably with 2 cuts in the future. if we start bringing some of these lower production fields up higher, giving them the proper things that they need, I think we could be stretching between 9,000 to 10,000 on a good year. And moisture playing into a factor into it, you know, who knows?
You got 2 cuts last year?
Yes, sir. Yeah. But we don't get 2 cuts on the whole farm. It's the higher production fields we tend to get 2 cuts. Low production, we don't tend to get 2 cuts.
So all your hay has been pre-ordered? You know, people have ordered hay earlier in the year, say, I'm going to need 2,000 bales this year.
Yeah.
Can you provide it? And then you say, oh, sure, and then he buys it?
Yes, for the most part. It's not all pre-ordered. Some customers just come in, but I do start a list in the spring, so I'll have my regular customers calling me late April, early May, want to get on the list. They'll tell me, you know, Will, I need 400 bales. I want it delivered. So they go on the list, and as you call, you get put on the list. And what we do here is generally first come, first serve. For the exception of first thing in the spring, you know, I start putting hay in June 15th. Everybody's low on hay. So we might take, let's say all these people ordered 300 bales. We may take 1 load to each, maybe 4 or 5 customers, just to get them by so they have something to feed their animals. Then we'll start at the top of the list and finish that 300. Then we go to the next one and finish it, and so on and so forth. But I don't like people to be sitting without hay just because I gave it all to one person. And most of my customers, regulars, understand that. They're like, as long as I have something to feed my animals and you're coming back, they're okay with it, and then it keeps everybody happy. I mean, people that have animals stress out when they don't have hay to feed.
What was your bale pricing this year, first cut, second cut?
First cut.
Delivery matter?
Yes.
On your pricing?
Yes. So first cut out of the barn was $475, and second cut was $550. Delivered, it was $550 for first cut and $625, basically an extra 75 cents increase for delivery.
How about on mulch hay?
Mulch hay is $3 a bale out of the barn and $3.50 delivered. We did not do a lot of mulch hay this year. In the past, we've done a lot more mulch hay, but this year we were able to get everything in good weather because we had a dry summer, and that helps because you get a better price for it.
But you're sold out?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. And we've been sold out for a while. Yeah. Any other questions?
I just want to make a comment that if there are people who came and they were strictly going to be here for an hour, just feel free to leave. But when you leave, if you haven't signed in, the sign-up sheet is right by the coffee table. So if you want to stay in touch with what's going on, we appreciate that. Thank you.
My group, if we'd like to head back out to this door, we're going to make a sharp left and go down beside the barn, and I'll meet you out there. And Ken's group, wherever Ken's going with them or wants to talk to them. Okay. Going to talk out here for a second, and then we're going to spin inside this barn. We'll get out of the wind and show you what goes on inside this barn. This barn over here is, we refer this to as the mulch barn. So we put mulch hay in there. It's getting in rough shape. It's been there for many, many years. It used to be a cattle barn that ran cattle in and out of there. So it's going to have some repair at some point in the future. It has a little bit of storage, a little bit of mulch hay in there, but not a lot right now. This barn right here, excuse me, used to be referred to as the pig barn. Is now, we call it the wood barn. It's been converted. All the pens got taken out for the pigs, and we have a wood processing that goes on in there. I'm going to show you that in a second. First, I wanted to show you the machine outside here. This is our wood processing machine. So obviously what happens, the logs get put on there, then one guy has 3 joysticks over here, and he can run it through to that orange thing as a marker, so 16 inches right there. The saw comes down and cuts, and then it falls down, and underneath there is a wood splitter. And so then he has a lever, he pushes the wood splitter through. Sometimes we have a 6-way wedge on it, might be like a 5-way wedge right now, because one of the wedges keeps breaking on us. And then it goes up into the conveyor and into the building. And we're going to go around into the building, and I'll show you what happens in there. So we moved this in 2 locations. We'll have it here. This is for our wood bagging program, which this last year has been basically the only business we've had with the wood. We used to do a lot more cordwood, and we provided to the Tri-County CAP, fuel assistance people, would buy a lot of wood from us. We would take out probably 20 to 30 cords of wood a year to fuel assistance programs. And when we do that, when we head up towards the hoop house, you'll be able to see out back. We're not going to walk all the way out there, but you can see we move the machine out there and we process into a big pile or into the truck, depending on if we're trying to get it seasoned. In the way back when we used to have everything, we used to try to put the wood up a year ahead of time so it can season, because that's what people want to buy. That's what the campers want to buy. The last few years we've been selling it so fast and not getting the logs in here, not getting the money in here to buy the logs, because we haven't been able to produce enough of them on the property, that we haven't been able to get ahead for that seasoning aspect, and that's really putting us in a bind on that business. Because campers that come from, I don't mean to insult anybody, but some that come from the city and such, sometimes don't know how to start fires as easily, and they really want it nice and dry in order to be able to do that when they're camping at our state parks. So, is there any questions out here that I could ask? Yes, sir.
Do we have a state contract that basically to provide firewood for the state parks?
We do not have a contract, we have a commitment.
Define the difference for me, please.
Well, a contract would be something in writing saying that they're going to pay us actually this for actually that. We have a commitment, which is more of a understanding and a verbal based on history. He has written a letter for delegation members. Saw it this last year. He will take 15,000 bags a year from us at a set price if we have them. The best year we've had since I've been here was about 13,000. I think we did almost 11,000 this year. So we've never been able to hit that 15,000 or more. And if we wanted to hit more, he would probably open us up to more campgrounds. Okay. But we haven't. So it's more of a commitment than it is a contract. Also, if you get involved in contracts, there's other fine print that goes on in there that if we just have a commitment with them, that they can do it this way.
Second question.
Yes, sir.
Based on the forest management plan that we have here, how many, on a sustainable basis, how many of those could we produce here at the farm itself? Of the 15,000 that they could take, how many could we produce here?
We can, and Wendy's going to come is with this group. As soon as we step inside, she's going to give a little more talk on the forest management plan. It calls for about 100 cords of wood, I believe, give or take, that can come sustainably, can come off. That doesn't mean every spot that she cuts, and she'll explain this, will get 100 cords, but theoretically I think it's about 100 cords is what the management plan calls for. And it's about, give or take, 150 bags to a cord. Okay. So, it's pretty close if you were to 15,000 if you were getting that exact number every year, because the 15,000 number doesn't change, but what comes in can change depending on what compartment on the property that's being harvested at the time.
Okay. All right.
So, any other questions out here?
Do you operate this machine?
I do, and also one of my employees. No inmates.
You only have one person who works with you? Just the two of you do this with everything else?
Yes, ma'am. So the inmates are not allowed to run any equipment. The only types of equipment they run is a lawnmower and a weed whacker. That's about their extent. Everything else is pretty much handwork that they do. So any kind of tractors, chainsaws, this kind of machine, trucks, any of that kind of stuff is all done between myself and my staff member here. Commissioner Sorensen wanted to ask about the softwood versus hardwood. You'll notice behind us we have a little hardwood, and here we're looking at pine. Traditionally, we've always done hardwood. That's what the campgrounds have wanted. Last year, hardwood prices spiked really high, and the availability to get it was extremely hard. We had a hard time getting it in. So some of the factors that and I'm sure Wendy will comment, she knows more than me, but with the warmer winter and less snow allowed the loggers to keep more consistent, so it started to flood I don't want to say flood, but really picked up the hardwood market a lot better. And then this year the price has gone down a little bit compared to what it was last year, and the availability has become a little bit more. So last year we did the pine. We bought in some pine. We lowered it. I talked with the campgrounds and we lowered it. They didn't seem to see a difference from the customers whether it was pine or hardwood. The people didn't seem to care. We put them in two different people. Yeah. We put them in two different color bags when we bag them, and we price them different. We sold a lot more softwood this year than we did last year, and we'll probably, with the pile we have out back here, it'll be processed up this year for next year. We'll probably be a lot more pine again. This year we didn't buy any pine in because hardwood was available. Plus we didn't really buy much in because we didn't have a budget again to do that. So, yes, sir.
Are there any techniques that you could do to hasten the seasoning process that you can't do for maybe budgetary reasons or whatever now?
Yes. So ideally, it would be nice to cut, split, and stack a whole year's worth and let it sit out there, because we have excellent drying conditions out in the middle of that field. We put it up on pallets so it's not sitting on the ground. The wind, the sun, everything out there is excellent. It dries really fast. But we don't have enough wood to do that years ahead of time. So what we've been trying to do, and the pine has worked out well, is we took a bunch of pine, we put that conveyor up as high as it would go. We piled a huge pile of pine out there back in probably late March, early April, and we let it sit until about July before we started bagging it. Obviously the pine dries a lot faster than the hardwood, so that sped it up. Plus being in a big pile out there, I mean, when you got down to the bottom and in the center, it wasn't real good. It wasn't real seasoned, but it did do better than, just having it, say, in the barn like this. So there are techniques that can speed it up. There are some, which I think we're a long ways away from this, but there are some, the state prison farm just got one this year as a kiln, so they're kiln drying their wood before they send it out to the campgrounds. Down there, they're in Merrimack County, so they have the emerald ash borer restriction, and so by kiln drying it, they can kill any bugs off. And some say that's the wave of the future, but to help prevent the bug sprays that may happen. But that would also be another technique that you could put in, put in the wood green, put it in there, have it seasoned, and go too. One more payment, 2017, so we make an annual payment on it. We did like I don't know if you want to call it a lease to own or finance. We did want a bigger, better, more locally made machine when we first put in for this, but we ended up finding this one, and it was a little bit more affordable for the machine. It's made by the Amish, actually, out in Michigan. So it is a pretty good machine. They have been really good about, I can call them up if I need to find it. A lot of the stuff on there I can go right down to Napa and buy, which is good for us,
Yes, sir. This may not be in your domain, but
Processing barn. This used to be where I'm standing. You can see a difference in the concrete. There were farrowing pens all through here in this whole barn. I don't know if anybody here, but I run into a lot of older generation that remembers coming and buying piglets here when they were kids. Mr. Alvey's probably one of them, and some others. The county was known for very good pigs back in the day. We did have a short little program here. I don't want to get derailed on that, but that came to an end, so we changed it to the wood program in here. Took out all the pens. So what happens is the wood comes off that processor onto this table, and there'll be 2 to 3 inmates standing here, and they will sort it. So they're looking at scrappy bark type stuff like this that they're putting off to one side. They're looking for stuff that's too fat that needs to be split again maybe, so we'll run it through the splitter again out there. And then they're also looking for little chunks and stuff like this that'll come at the end of a log. So their job is to sort it out into these different things. Then I have another 1 or 2 inmates that are coming and stacking it in here. The idea is that we try to fill, at different times, we try to fill this with a lot of wood, so if we have several rainy days in a row where we can't be outside doing stuff, we can come in here and they have work that can be done in here. So they take it from this row, they put it on these tables as you see, and they're standing behind there, and they take one of these buckets that has the hole out, they put a bag over top of the bucket, set it down, they fill it full as best as they can, they pull the bucket out, then they take other little pieces and some of the kindling, because as those that commented, the kindling really helps the folks that can't start fires real well. And we pack all the little cracks with that. Then they tie the bag up, it's counted, and then it's stacked on the other side of this tarp. The reason the tarp is there is to help keep the heat in. We run a wood stove out here. If it gets below 30 degrees or colder outside, this barn really doesn't keep up very well trying to heat it when we're out here. We only run the wood stove when we're out here. But if it's warmer than 30, you get in the 40s, late February, early March, sometimes when it's warming back up. This last winter we had quite a few days when we could be out here. And they'll keep keep going with the wood stove in here, and that helps keep the heat at this end. We had a real problem when a lot of this pine came in last year and we were bagging it, that it started to mold right inside the bags because they were all packed in here trying to get as much in as we could to get our numbers as high as we could. So we are trying a different stacking method this year on that side. We're running one horizontal and one vertical, and then horizontal and vertical, trying to get more airflow through them. And you'll hear there's a fan going back there. We've also been trying to keep air moving 24/7 in here to keep that going. So that's the gist of what we do now with the wood program. Sometimes, I was mentioning, we put a big pile out back to dry earlier this summer, so we'll load that into a truck. Sometimes we'll do it with a loader, sometimes we do it by hand. Bring it down these big double doors here, we'll dump it in here, and then again from there they'll pick it up and sort it and stack it, or go right to the tables depending on what's going on at the time, and keep the process moving. And we try to keep as accurate as possible of count, so I know what I have going into storage. I think right now, I haven't looked at it this last week, I was on vacation, but they were up around 11 to 1,200 bags already that we started this fall that are stacked over there. So, any questions on the wood processing procedures that we do out here? To have this going full bore and top production and hopping, you can put 2 guys per table. So we got 3 tables, that's 6 guys there, and then this operation of processing at the same time can take up to 3 guys. So I can employ up to 9 inmates on a day that we're doing high production in here, and be knocking out a lot of bags and putting wood in the barn at the same time. Generally that doesn't happen, obviously, I don't get that many. So sometimes what we do, we have smaller amounts, we'll process for a couple days, then we'll pull the guys off of that so that myself or my other staff member can go do something else, and then the staff member that supervises the inmates will stay down here and they'll bag for a few days. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to put my hands around this a little bit. When we talked about the labor, the prison labor that's available for this, and how in the coming years it may be less. So if you don't have the labor to do this stuff, where are you going to get the labor to do it, to meet that theoretical 15,000 bags?
That's the question of the day that we're struggling with. That as a management team, I know we tried to explain that to the commissioners from Ken and myself's point of view. When you have a limited amount of labor and inmates, what can you do to make the most money with them? Well, I just told you over in that barn that I can have 2 inmates on the wagon and 4 inmates stocking. So I got 3 wagons. So theoretically, my view is if the inmates are in school all day, and let's say 3 o'clock to get done with their classes, those 4, if I have 2 on the wagons, the 4 that are in class could come out after 3 o'clock and could stack the hay inside the barn then, and we could keep running with that business. But now if I have just those 2 inmates while the other 4 are in class all day, I have 2 inmates down here bagging wood. How much wood am I really going to get bagged with 2 inmates? And then now I have the same 2 inmates, I have to do all the lawn care that we're talking about out there because those other 4 are in class. So that's where we're in that unknown right now of how those are going to affect those classes and programs, which are very good for the guys. How are we going to manage that out here for the things that we do? Is there going to have to be some sacrifices? Is there going to have to be we have to hire somebody? Do we have to modify the program? These are all the questions that we're kind of in that unknown bubble at this time with that.
How much do we get per bag of wood for the
campfires? The pine goes out for $3 a bag, and they're in a purple bag. These are the bags. Thank you, sir. And then we have red bags that the hardwood go in for $3.50 a bag. And then depending on how far away they are, which is basically every one of them except for White Lake State Park, gets a fuel surcharge. Most of the time it's $75. White Lake, they're so close there's no fuel charge for them. And then we have some that we go a long ways that we charge up to $125 for a fuel surcharge when we go to their campgrounds. Most of what we deliver to are White Lake. We'll go up to Crawford Notch. So you got Moose Brook up there, and Dry River Campground are some of our big ones. Sometimes Jericho. We didn't really sell much to Jericho this year. And sometimes to Lafayette over in Franconia Notch. We started off selling some to them, and then they started buying theirs somewhere else. But we supplied so much to White Lake. I mean, we were taking a whole truckload, which is about 450 bags a week, or more, yeah, a week to White Lake. That was keeping us hopping just to try to keep them going once our inventory wears down. So it's weird because the campfire wood business really peaks like in August and even in this first part of September sometimes. So June and July it starts to pick up, and then it just really takes off. And I don't know if everybody's taking their vacations before school, school goes back in August or what, but it really jumps when we get into August and first part of September. Any other questions I can answer about the wood program real quick?
I think the majority of the wood program can be done in the cool season when we're not mowing lawns or plowing snow. As long as it's warm enough in here for them to work, it's a good program for through the winter time.
Oh, it goes in fun drying though. Wood, water content.
True.
Wouldn't it be great if we could hire some part-time workers? Especially a year when we don't have snow and there's people that are
I
wanting
don't mean to
to...
cut you off, but let's not get off topic right now. That's a discussion that we can have up in the nursing home. We want to keep going here. I want to give Wendy just a quick minutes to those who talk about the forest management. Then we're going to swing over to the hoop house, which is right out here real quick, and then we can have that kind of conversation up in the nursing home.
Okay. Well, some of the information about the county farm, the number that we use for acres is about 894 acres. That's what the property is. I'm sorry, I'm Wendy Scribner. I work with UNH Cooperative Extension as the Carroll County Forester and am responsible for the forest management on this property as well as providing landowner assistance throughout the county. And so the property itself is close to 900 acres. Around 100 acres or so are in hay fields. Then we have the buildings. The remainder of the property is in forest. We do have a couple of significant wetlands that run through the property, but there's a comprehensive forest management plan that was written by my predecessor. Actually, the property has been under a management plan for about 50 years, but the most recent one was written in 2006. And it basically sets out different compartments that we work in and manage on the property. Okay, where did I want to go with that? So each year, since 2010, we've had 4 timber sales. These are put out to bid for private logging companies to bid on, and part of what we're doing is actually the landowner objectives. The county commissioners had indicated that income generation is an important priority for this property. And so when we look at managing timber, any timber harvest you have, there are a whole variety of different products that come off the property. Your highest value products are going to be your saw timber and your veneer. Saw timber going into lumber, boards, that sort of thing. You also get a lot of lower quality products. We call that pulpwood. Hardwood pulpwood is also firewood. And softwood pulpwood goes to some of the paper mills, and then wood biomass chips. Those are our lower grade products. So really to generate income, our goal here is to manage for saw timber volume. So we're trying to manage all of these different compartments to grow quality trees. So we're harvesting to not only remove the poor quality trees, but also set the stage for regeneration to keep this forest growing productively over time. So since 2010, we've had 4 timber sales on the property covering about 75 acres. We have generated, and again, when we talk about what you generate in a timber sale, saw timber volumes are measured in 1,000 board feet. Firewood is measured in cords, and softwood, pulpwood, and biomass chips are measured in tons. So you get all of these different units of measure, and it's really hard to get a sense of, well, what does that really mean? So I took the numbers from those different harvests and combined them all into cords, or converted them all into cords. So over those 4 timber sales, in the last 6 years, we've harvested about 2,200 cords of wood from the property. again, it's in that whole different product mix. Some of that cordwood, about 340 cords of it, has come down here to be processed, tree length. So we contract out to have the harvest done. Part of our contract is to bring a certain amount of that firewood down here for the inmates and the DPW crew to process. So of that 2,200 cords that we've harvested in the last 4 sales, about 340 of those cords came down here. The rest of those wood products were sold, generating about $29,000 for the county. And one of the challenges has been that Will needs hardwood pulpwood, and on a pretty regular basis. But some of the compartments that we're working in are predominantly softwood. So our last timber sale that was completed between 2015 and 16, we harvested about 600 cords of wood. Only 50 cords of that was hardwood. And so of that, about 35 of those cords came here. But, you know, to try to keep him going with 120 cords, we're just not working in stands that we can get those volumes from. We'll also talked about challenges for purchasing wood in and switching over to the pine pulpwood. About 2 years ago, this challenge really came up because we had a lot of markets regionally for hardwood pulpwood. So hardwood pulpwood not only is used for firewood, but it is also used by some of the paper manufacturing that's been going on. Our low-grade hardwood saw logs can also be used for this timber mat market that's out there. And with all of the fracking and stuff that's been going on, utility companies will buy these low-grade logs and slab them off, and then they will drive over them to get into sites, get over wetlands, that sort of thing. So 2 years ago we had really strong demand for hardwood pulpwood, and it really pushed the prices up. Since that time we've had a mild winter, and we have Verso Paper, which is over in Jay, Maine, shut down one of their paper machines. It was just announced 2 days ago they're going to be shutting down a second one in January. But what that's done is there's a lot of this product now that's available. It doesn't have a home, actually, and it's gotten to the point that what will happen is the loggers will then ship that material and they'll send it to the biomass plants. And right now those plants are getting plugged up with wood, and we're seeing this sort of work its way back through the industry, so that we have a lot of loggers right now that are working 4-day weeks because we can't find a home for this particular product right now, that tree length hardwood and softwood pulpwood. But it just gives you a sense of 2 years ago that was a really hard product to find. Now we've got more than we know what to do with, but this all feeds into whether we're able to have the wood available for the farm here to process.
Thank you.
Sure. Somebody did have a question about emerald ash borer. Yeah. Okay. And we do have 4 counties are quarantined right now: Merrimack, Belknap, Hillsborough, and Rockingham. So they have populations of emerald ash borer in them. I have a log over where you signed in that will show you the sort of damage that the emerald ash borer does to our trees, but it can kill ash trees within 3 to 5 years, and has killed tens of millions of them from Michigan eastward. So we, all ash products are regulated coming out of that quarantine area. And so a couple of years ago, there was a lot of the firewood that's produced at the prison could not be moved out of Merrimack County because it was in the quarantine area. That's why they have a dry kiln coming on now. But we are trying to limit the movement of potentially infected ash trees so that we don't spread the problem faster than the insect can move on its own.
Well, can it spread up here?
Yes, it does not seem to be sensitive to cold, and so we do expect that it is going to come through here. On its own, the insect will expand its range about 2 miles a year. So we're hoping it will take a while to get here. And looking at forest management, we're encouraging people that have high-value ash trees, to look at if they have harvesting plans, consider, taking that out before it gets killed. But we don't want people to take all their ash trees out because we don't want the insect to start moving faster and, to find suitable feeding sites.
Does it feed on anything else?
How often do you revisit or rewrite the forest management plan? You said it was done about 10 years ago. How often do you review that?
Yeah, it's quite a process to redo the management plan because you really collect a lot of detailed inventory information. Typically, a plan will be valid for 10 to 15 years, and so we will probably in the next 5 years or so be looking at updating that inventory information and making adjustments to the plan. Yes, and a question was just asked about what trees does the emerald ash borer attack. Primarily here it's white ash, brown ash, and green ash. We do have mountain ash is often planted as a landscape tree, and you find it at higher elevations here. That is not a species that is a true ash, so those are not affected. But unfortunately, green ash, it's very tolerant of city and urban conditions, so it was used as a landscaping tree a lot, and in some cases it was used as people lost their elm trees in communities, and so that's a concern in some of our more developed areas, is dealing with the impact of having a bunch of trees that you either have to treat with pesticides or you have to remove them as this infestation expands.
Any more questions? Wendy? If not, we're going to go ahead and file out the door. We're going to go straight ahead. Okay, so just a quick review because this is a good spot to see. You can see that the wood pile we have out there, that's our wood lot that we usually process and stack wood at. We have hay fields out here. You go through the woods, there's another hay field out there. All across the road that we saw down below the jail, the hay fields. We have hay fields up here. You go up Route 171, we have more hay fields. So we have about, the county has about 70 acres that we do here for actual hay fields. There's more open land, but that's actually able to be hayed at 70 acres. And then we got about another 20 acres that further up the road that we hay for a family up there that we've been doing for way before my time. And the county gets out a really good deal out of that job there. A lot of help from Wendy's co-worker, Olivia Saunders. I don't know if she's here today or not, but
she's not.
She's not. Okay, so she's the agricultural educator. I don't know what their new title is up there, but she's the agricultural educator. When you got vegetable questions, she's your expert to call. And so she played a big role in this also, in getting it and helping us put it up. It came from Metal Edge Farms, so they make them right up here up the road, local. The wood, all the lumber you see here, I cut the trees out back and pulled them out, and I had someone come in and custom mill it for us, and then we used the lumber to build it. So it's all been, sourced very local. The hay wagons, you guys didn't see very many. There's one out in front of my shop that we walked by earlier, but there's 3 hay wagons here. 2 of them, again, we cut all the wood out back, milled it all out, and built our stuff. So we try to be as useful with the resources that we are given here as possible. We took one fall and put this up. It took us maybe close to a month, give or take. Inside, you can see that there's different rows in here. Each one of these rows has drip tape underneath it so it can be irrigated. We have an automatic fan system here that kicks on, temperature control. It blows all the hot air out when it gets hot, and there's louvers that open up on the other end to help push the air through. These sides roll up, So oftentimes in the summertime, once we get past when we're going to have frost and such, she'll roll the sides up a little bit, and then as the plants grow bigger and get stronger, it can handle the wind, because as you'll notice, we have a lot of wind. This is a calm day around here, and we'll roll them up higher, and then they can have plenty of wind coming through. She also has, excuse me, sorry about that. She also has some native bees, habitat type stuff on the other side. Wendy's also been working with her. There's on this, and they got another site up above that they've been planting. There was a couple of sites down here to attract native pollinators to help out with pollination. This area right behind us here is what's left of our original garden. We did plant, like I said, a few things in there that we got for donations this year. And we took harvested a little bit out of there, but not a lot. We donated, I think we took a couple loads to a food bank and then some to the nursing home, but very, very little, nothing that was produced any kind of money. It was more just when we had some spare time and voluntary this year, because we didn't have the sort resources that we normally would to do that. And again, that's all irrigated there. This hoop house can have different things done with it. We've primarily, Olivia has done, last year she did a tomato trial, and then this year she did a pepper trial. So what happens is she coordinates with other people in her field. So they usually have here, one in Grafton County, and then they'll have one down in Durham or Lee down at the university, and they'll do a similar trial for all three places, and they'll compare all of the data that they get from those three places. And then they take that data and they share it with different evening meetings and such with local growers. So if you're a local grower and you're like, well, what variety should I grow? She's kind of doing a lot of the research for you, and then passes that information out to give you some ideas of what kind of production you may be looking at if you decide to go with that that variety. So that's what she's done a lot here with this. And then we fill it. We get the advantage of is she does a lot of the work on her trial stuff. She has a little more room that we put stuff in, and then after she gets done weighing all her stuff, we get the option that we get all the produce that come out of it. So it can all go to the nursing home, or it can go to food banks and whatever we have the market for it. So we don't have to do as much of the labor in there. She does it for her trials, and we try to help her out when we can. But then the rest of it comes to us, so it works out for a pretty good deal for us. Is there any quick questions that we have while we're over here about the hoop house or anything? No? Okay, we're going to just head around the corner here, Ken, right? Yep.
Everybody's at the nursing home waiting, so
okay,
we'll continue our talk there.
Steve Knox, and I chaired the Carroll County Farm Advisory Committee that the commissioners appointed last spring. I want to thank both Ken and Will taking a day off from his vacation to give us this tour. Very informative, very, very helpful. I want to thank them both. And I want to just give you all just a little bit of a background as to what our committee was charged to do. And that is to take a good hard look at the costs of running the county farm. And what we're finding as we get into that, it was just very preliminary. Both Wendy and Becky Mason have been involved in that. There's a lot of work to find here, and both Ken and the administration has been very, very helpful in giving us that information. It's going to be a long, drawn-out process. But we hope to, by the end of the month, have some good, solid data as to just what this county farm is costing us, both from the revenue that it generates and the cost of producing that revenue. We feel that then and only then can we sit down with good solid numbers and decide what is the future of the county farm. And that's our goal, and we hope to do that. What we are trying to do is to conduct a feasibility study on the county farm, to bring in some outside experts to do that. That's going to involve money. We're not sure where the money's going to come from, but we feel, again, that we need information to take a look at what are the options here. And that's something that's going to take a lot more time. As some of you may know, Andy Kendall of the Kendall Foundation has been working with us to some extent. And the Kendall Foundation is a national, or I should say, countrywide organization whose main focus is basically on establishing statewide and regional food systems. and he's been in the background helping us. He's been here and met with us twice. He's very big, his organization is very big on creating a county-wide food system in which we have the farm community involved in basically growing more of our own food here. In his scenario, he sees the county farm as being a food hub in which a lot of the food that's locally grown is brought in and is also processed and marketed throughout the region. That's going to be a very, very long step, but again, I think it's interesting, something we should take a look at. But there are other ideas and options going on as well, and the delegation appointed their own subcommittee and is taking a look at the county farm becoming a learning educational center. And as Representative Glenn Cordelli basically chairs that, and I'd like to turn it over to him to explore some of that as well.
Thank you. I wanted to introduce Mark McConkey and Ed Comeau, both members of the committee as well. And how our committee got started was basically a presentation by the Cooperative Extension a number of months ago, and it started some of us to thinking about possibilities, things that we learned about what the Cooperative Extension does that we hadn't realized. So 3 or 4 of us started meeting with the Cooperative Extension on several occasions, including Mark and Ed, talking about the concept of a learning center being part of the future of the county farm. And it grew into a formal subcommittee of the county delegation. And we've had 3 or 4 meetings. We've had meetings at the Remick Farm Museum, and most recently at the community school in Tamworth. And every time we get together, there are more opportunities presented to us, more ideas. At the last meeting at the community school, I had a professor from NHTI Community College come up and be part of the discussion. And they have recently started a certificate program in sustainable agriculture and hope to grow that into a full associate's degree. But we talked about the idea of, as part of a learning center here, or maybe elsewhere as well, online courses for people that might be interested in that agricultural certificate, the sustainable agriculture certificate, taking online courses and possibly doing the entire course if there was interest up here as part of a learning center, or in cooperation with the community school and the Remick Museum. There's a lot of possibilities. One of the possibilities we discussed with NHTI was, wouldn't it be fantastic if one of those kids who gets a certificate or an associate's degree later on could get a low-cost or no-cost plot of land here at the county complex and begin their career in agriculture, without having to, worry about the expense of buying a piece of real estate and so forth. So we think that the concept of a learning center can definitely be a part of the future of a 21st century county farm. And that's what we will explore, and I know that Mr. Knox and many of his committee view that as a part of the future as well, and we look forward to working with his committee as we move forward.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments? We need to hear from you.
I just want to make everybody aware too that it is sort of a joint effort. The Learning Center had a Facebook page, and we have now become part of that Facebook page. So it is the Carroll County Farm and Agricultural Learning Center Facebook page, where we're posting stuff. Like we posted the aerial photos and stuff. As we're getting more stuff, we can post in now. So that's another avenue that you can check for information on stuff, because we will be posting, like, we're actually going to dig up some history of the farm and everything like that, what it used to be and stuff. So you have a history as well.
Thank you, Becky. Comments, questions?
I would just like to say that we're in the process of changing legislators and changing county commissioners, and it's really important when you leave to stay in touch with the Farm Advisory Committee, and you're going to start driving home and say, I have a really great idea, and all those great ideas need to be heard by the Farm Advisory Committee. So if you would, a note to the Farm Advisory Committee at 95 Water Village Road. We'll get it. And we do hope to have many listening sessions and bring lots of people in with their good ideas. And of course, the bottom line is we need money.
Just to kind of, I think it's important that we get a sense of just what kind of an asset do we have here. And we have to remember that as county residents, this is an asset that we own. This is ours. And what we're looking at is, as Wendy has said, 800, 900 acres of land and buildings that if the county were to go out today and to try to buy this and establish it, it would cost the county probably multi-millions of dollars. It is an incredible asset that we have here. And I think what we're all trying to determine, that's the commissioners, the delegation, what is the best use of this asset? And that's where I think we're all trying to work on and determine. What is the best use of this incredible asset? And it is. We own it. It's ours. It's owned free and clear. And so that is going to require a lot of study, a lot of, as Representative Cordelli mentioned, it seems that every time the two groups meet, the new options, new ideas put on the table. And we all have a responsibility to explore and take seriously every one of those options and to explore it as deeply as we can to come up with what we think are the best answers for the future of this incredible asset that we have. And just as a thought, as I was mentioning a couple of people, there's an old adage which I think we probably have all heard, and that is that one definition of insanity is to keep doing something the same way and expect a different result. And we need to be looking at this. And this goes back to what Representative Cordelli said. Let's explore all options. What is the best use of this incredible farm and asset that we have for the 21st century? And I think that we are all in agreement on that. But we need input from you. I don't think any of us would claim that we have the only answers. There are probably many answers out there. So talk to us. You tell us what you think would be the best use of this asset going forward. And as Susan says, we're hoping to have listening sessions and basically as well. Wendy.
I just wanted to follow up on what Susan had said. On the back of one of those handouts, are all of our email addresses. And feel free to let us know your ideas and your thoughts.
Yes, thank you, Wendy. I hope everybody has time to grab one of these. There's good information there.
And big thank you to Will, who came off his vacation to come to work today for us.
Yes.
And we can.
I just wanted to make everybody clear that all these Farm Advisory Committee meetings and the Learning Center meetings are videotaped. You can grab a card. They're also posted onto that shared Facebook page, so if you can't make it to the meetings, they're usually 8 o'clock in the morning. And
We're really
videotaped, so there's a record of everything.
Yes.
And it's important that people stay involved and connected, and if you can't come to the meetings, comment on Facebook. Everybody's watching it, and everybody's reading your comments, so it's a good place to deposit your ideas.
Thank you, Representative Comeau. We all want to be aware of that. That is very true. And again, to stress the fact, is public input is welcome. It is needed as we go forward with this. This is a county-wide decision. And what we want to bear in mind historically here, and this is unfortunate, there are 10 counties in the state of New Hampshire. 8 of those counties have closed their county farms. There are only 2 operating county farms now, one in Carroll County and in Grafton County. And what is interesting is Coas County, which closed its county farm in 2012, is now all of a sudden taking another look at that. They're wondering, were we premature in doing this? And they have created a committee that's doing research to take a look at this. So this is one of those things that I don't think anybody wants to rush to judgment on this. It's due diligence. It's doing our work to basically take a look at all the information and data that we need and taking a look at all the options that are out there. And that is our collective responsibility. Questions? Yes, you go.
My name's Amanda Beaver, and as many of you know, I'm running for County Commissioner from District 1. But I grew up running around up here. And I've been looking up at the other counties and what they have done with their county agricultural property. they all have their county complexes. We grew up thinking the county farm was everything. We never made a, that this was agricultural and that was farm and everything else was part of the county. So when you talk to people that are from around here, we have to be very careful that we're talking about the agricultural part when we talk about the county farm, and that we do have the nursing home and we have other, the House of Corrections, etc. But I've noticed that several of them have become historical sites. And I think, especially here since the Etched in Granite novel came out, which was about the original pauper home here, that we ought to kind of look at that aspect also, because farms are, agricultural things are historical also. So, I forget who it said it, which is terrible, but the best way to stop anything is contempt prior to investigation. So I think that we need to ask all of the voters and the taxpayers in the Carroll County to give us their opinions and their suggestions. Because I learned one thing teaching, and that is the more minds you have involved solving a problem, the better the solution is. So thank you all for all of your time. That's wonderful.
Thank you very much. I want to just make one more. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a curiosity question. Carroll County and Grafton County being the two counties that have farms.
Yes.
And both having apparently some financial straight issues. I guess Grafton County, milk prices being down, they were coming in around $500,000 mark, as well as being some target of having issues of trying balancing the budgets, if you will. Has there been any thought about maybe merging? Do they have a committee as well, a farm committee? And is there a possibility of merging the two county committees and expanding that and expanding the same concept of different ideas on how to reduce the deficit, let me use that term, or increase revenue? Any interactivity between the two counties? They're experiencing the same issue, I think.
If there are any county commissioners here, maybe they may be able to answer that.
I attended the Association of Counties meeting yesterday and talked to two of the three commissioners from Grafton County, and there's been no discussion at all about closing the farm.
Okay, thank you.
Regardless of the rumors you hear around here.
Yeah, but the point was, if you look at the balance sheet,
yes,
your balance sheets are almost identical. You're in financial straits. And the only way you're going to save the farms is either cut expense or increase revenue. So the question is, has there been any effort to merge the talents of both Grafton County and Carroll County, whether they're at town administration or whether they're at commissioner level or delegation level? I'm presuming that all efforts are in the kettle to try to resolve the issue of the asset that is owned by the taxpayers of Carroll County.
Well, that's an interesting idea, and I think something, again, to take a look at. Yes, thank you.
Steve, although Thursday's meeting, you did discuss reaching out to Coos County.
Yes, yes.
And meeting with their group. So
yes,
they are actively moving forward.
Right.
And you had talked about with Belknap and Jessica as part of the northern group.
Yes.
I can't remember the exact name of that. Your group.
The Saco Valley.
Oh, I work for the Upper Saco Valley Land Trust. Yep. Yeah, so I'm the northern part of the county.
Yes,
many different to see if
Yeah,
something
no
can.
problem. There's only two counties that have a farm issue.
Yes.
Is my point.
Yes.
If you're going to talk to Belknap County or Rockingham County or Merrimack County, kind of like Tapestry. Thank God we finally got online registry of deeds here in Carroll County. Eight of the 10 counties are on Tapestry. Merrimack County, Rockingham County, and not. They've got their own thing. They can afford their own thing. But the point I'm trying to make here, there are only two counties that have farm issues to be resolved. The two issues being expense or revenue.
Yep.
That's all I'm saying. If you're going to go to Merrimack County or if you're going to Salem or Wyndham, no offense, I don't think they care less.
I think Becky's point is that we're making outreach into the community for greater input on what kind of ideas could solve these issues. You make an excellent point that working with a county farm that has very, very similar issues is a good strategy, but I think all she was saying is that, you know, like Amanda said, many minds coming together is the best thing. Oh, there's an idea. Yeah.
Yes, sir. When you look at agriculture in the state in general, the State Farm Bureau meeting is next Friday in Meredith. Friday in the legislative session, I guess it's on Saturday. We have 120 dairy farmers left in the state. We've lost 20, or we've lost 20 of them. We've got 100 dairy farmers only left in the state. We're talking about raising $3 million to bail them out. Some of these people in this committee might want to attend that meeting. The commercials, what I'm saying is the commercial segment of agriculture is no different than the county segment of agriculture. I'm one of the better farmers, maybe in Carroll County, Spiderweb Gardens, but there's some others a little larger than I am. My payroll is $250,000. I work hard. I've worked hard for many years, grossing about $1 million, and I'm lucky if I can get $10,000 to $20,000 of that to stick. P&L here and so forth with everybody else. But I pay $10,000 in property taxes for the town of Tuftonboro. I've kept land in what I consider ideal shape. Farmland that I've improved every year that I've been on it. This farming thing for profit.
Where's the profit?
There's more to it than, and if some of these people on that committee attend that meeting, they're going to find that out. Yeah, we got 100 dairy farmers left in the state. None of them are making anything on dairy right now. If they didn't have to sell a little manure on the sideline, a little horse hay to the horse people on the sideline and everything else. Most of those people would be in the same straits I'm in. We're all in the same straits. We do what we do, not for profit, but for passions, to see land do things and so forth. And the county farm here has been the same way forever. You know, I go back long enough so I can remember when Chucky Severance was farm manager here, and way back. And we trained a lot of people here, educated a lot of people, turned a lot of people's lives around. And what is that worth? And you know, you've got to put a value on that.
Can I ask you a question? Hold that thought, please. Ask you a question, because you've raised a solid point, and I think the committee is running into that question as well. And that is someone who has spent all their adult life basically involved in this. If someone gave you a magic wand and said, okay, what steps do you think that could make that different? What would your recommended thoughts or ideas be? Because this is a statewide problem. You know, farmers basically are struggling to stay alive, and a lot of them aren't. What, if anything, could we do to make that different?
I went through the 2-year and the 4-year program at UNH.
Yep.
I grew up, my grandfather started our operation in 1938. I started working there in 1960. Went through UNH, the Thompson School down there, which is an associate degree program, which is talking about the education in there. There were 60 of us students at that time, 30 freshmen, 30 seniors. Right now they've got 4 students down there. We haven't got an associate degree program even working at UNH. And yet people are going to Unity and other schools to learn the sustainable thing. I'm going to drive profitability back into agriculture. Forget about the sustainable end of it. So that, you know, I like the idea, the education idea and everything, but I've been involved with the community school too, and Remick, and I wonder if that, I'm not 100% sold on that. I don't know. You gotta love it. Don't know.
I'm not a farmer, and so I've got to be very careful how I approach this thing. I'm pleading my ignorance right up front. But one thing I do know, and that is we all eat. We all need food. We all eat 3 meals a day. Food is not a luxury. It is something that we all need. What I've also read is that we are at the end of a 3,000-mile food chain. Our food comes from California. California is in the middle of a 4-year drought. And yet, most of our food, 85–90% of fruits and vegetables comes from California. So it would seem to me that in every mile of that 3,000-mile chain is subject to a breakdown, regardless of what it is. It's subject to a breakdown. I can remember, and I'm showing my age here, back in 78 or 79, we had 2 major weekends in the winter, we had snowstorms. The food shelves in the stores emptied out within 24 hours. The food was gone. That's the dependency. And so what we're looking at, we're not looking at, gee, how can we provide a luxury that we may or may not need, but how do we meet a basic need, something that every one of us needs? How do we meet that? Which is why I asked the question, if I gave you a magic wand and you said, okay, you make the changes that you need that basically that not only will allow you to make more money, but encourage other people to get involved in agriculture. We're not trying to produce or grow something that nobody needs. And I don't have an answer. And I don't know if anybody else has an answer either. But there's a need there. And the question is, and what I think this committee is trying to take a look at is, and I hope I'm not jumping the gun, is, but what role can and should the county farm play in that? That to me is the basic question. Because as I repeat, this is an asset we all own. This isn't something that somebody else owns. This is ours. And how do we use it to our advantage, if we can? And Lynn Cordelli's committee is looking at the same thing. How do we make this use? And I want to just jump on to a comment that Representative Cordelli made. This summer, I attended a workshop that the small and beginning farmers of New Hampshire held here. This was a captive audience. There were a few of them. It was a workshop. And in the course of the discussion, I asked them, what is the biggest problem that you as small and beginning farmers face here in what you're trying to do? They said unanimously, I could read from a script, the availability of cheap land. That was their problem. So you're back to your comment, people aren't getting involved in agriculture. Probably some of them realize they're priced out before they even begin. So again, is this a role that the county farm could play in the future? Basically, as Representative Cordelli says, in the Learning Educational Center, of basically providing 1 or 2 acre plots of land for these small and beginning farmers to get involved in? I don't know, but it certainly is something that's interesting and should be pursued, as long as other options. So there's a lot here to take a look at, a lot. Yes, sir?
Is there, is the expectation that the county farm, which we all own, break even? Or does it have to show a profit? And if it has to show a profit, is it $1? Or is it $20,000 or $100,000? What is the expectation?
I can't answer that question. I think maybe some of the delegation here and the commissioners can answer that question better than I can. But that's a good question. What is that litmus test? What is that point in which they say, okay, we keep it going? I don't know. Is there anybody here that would get it?
Yeah.
Okay, you go ahead.
To answer your question, it depends on what the taxpayers and the owners want at your house. Is it important that you make a profit on your front lawn? It depends on what you want. Now, I will tell you something, and this is very emotional for me. In that corner over there is a young man that I believe is 41. He's my son, and I'm very proud of him. His first piglet came from here at the county farm. And he was, I think, 4. That was the beginning of him becoming a 4-H member, becoming a young farmer, doing the agricultural school at Kingswood. Today, he's a member of the Farm Bureau. I never had to bail him out of jail. I worried to death because I was a single parent after his dad died. But you know, because of the agricultural community that he got tied into with the first piglet from here and his other trips up here, he stands there today. He owns his home. He has, over the years with myself, managed to accumulate 650-acre farm in Wolfboro, piecemeal. You talk about it not being affordable. The price of land was a whole lot higher when he was buying small lots to put together. So it is an emotional thing for me. My farm probably doesn't make a lot of money, but as you can see, we both live pretty well. We eat well. The profit or not profit here, I think, has to be not only done with dollars and cents, but in what it does for the community. We are constantly barraged about putting land in current use, putting land in trust funds so it doesn't get cut up into house lots. The 650 acres that we have put together, a lot of that, there's 56 parcels, a lot of it was 5-acre house lots that were done in the 60s to 2 old antique farms. So the whole thing is very emotional. I think it's emotional for the people in the county that have grown up knowing that they own this beautiful piece of property. People that have moved here because we have this bucolic atmosphere. And I think that keeping an agricultural part to the county complex is invaluable. And now I'll sit down and shut up. Thank you.
Thank you. So for a more practical answer, and I want to preface this by saying that I believe that we need to respect the past when we make our decision about the farm. We need to have a broad perspective on the present when we make our decisions, and we also need to look to the future. So all of those are very important, but practically speaking, any activity done on or by the farm that costs money has to have an appropriation made by the delegation. So in answer to, does it have to make a profit? In order for the farm to function, the delegation has to support it. And it would be up to the delegation to decide, are they willing to support something only if it makes a certain profit, only if it breaks even, or even if it doesn't. And I think that explains the situation.
Yes. Thank you, Susan. I'll speak also for the delegation. The question is, at what number does it make sense, whether it breaks even or whether it makes money? I think what you saw today was a viewing of what our asset is and what's available to us. As far as the issue that the delegation had, which brought this to a head, was that we haven't been able to get the numbers to truly say, we know how much money we made on blueberries, but we don't know how much it cost us to get there. We know how much revenue came from wood processing, but we've struggled over the years to put all of those numbers. It's not the gross number, it's the net number. This group has been working diligently on the same. I think once we finally get to a point that we all understand the numbers, then we can move forward and do what's best. We're getting very close to that point right now, and I'm hopeful once that's pulled together, then we who, the delegation that handles the appropriation, will then be able to make an intelligent decision on what makes sense for the county.
Thank you. This is a good discussion.
I need to introduce some negativity because I think there's a lot of positive energy in this group. And we have, I fully applaud all the new ideas that are being brought to expand this agricultural complex. But many of us feel that it should not be at the expense of the traditional farm. And the delegation last year cut the budget of the farm by $90,000, which was a lot. And praise to the commissioners and Will for making the farm continue to work, to eke out a product with those reduced dollars for support. And I would hope in a positive way that, I think it was short-sighted by the delegation because we had asked for full funding while we did a study and while we tried to answer some of these questions. But it was decided at that time, and I know that there are some members of the delegation that would like to see the farm go away. However, I'm hoping in a positive way that the new delegation will vote to support the findings of the study of the Farm Advisory Committee and some of the ideas of the Learning Center, and that we can go ahead with this farm, a traditional farm, and new expanded opportunities.
Thank you. I think, Steve, you mentioned the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I think the delegation got to that point, and from my viewpoint, I think the delegation took action because no one else would. And I don't think that without the action the delegation took, we would not all be sitting in this room here today talking about the future and the possibilities, as Mr. Kendall said, that are almost endless for the agricultural use of this property. And I think that that is what we need to focus on, is the future and making use of this wonderful asset that we have for the benefit of Carroll County.
Well said, thank you.
I just want to say that
Yes,
I was
Susan.
the person that did the publicity, and I said to people we would have a short farm tour. The cafe is open, and you can get some of the best food there at half price, and you'll never get food poisoning in the nursing home. It's very good. And maybe what we need to do is let people leave if they wish to leave. If they've signed up, we can stay in touch.
Susan, do we have to mention your name in order to get that half price?
No!
Oh, okay.
It's you can get a cup of coffee for 50 cents, a cup of soup for $1, real good food. We could get extra revenue if we did a little bit of it.
Thank you. I appreciate your patience for one last comment, and I just wouldn't want the public to think that we have been doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting different results. Because as we learned on our tour today, we have done many, many things different. We have made many improvements, and we are in the continuing process of doing so.
That was a philosophical comment that I made. I wasn't pointing the finger, but you want to be sure we have the trap.
Could I, speaking as a taxpayer, I'm not running for office or anything like that. Speaking as a taxpayer, melding the concept of altruism for whatever motive and practicality, like any other business, bottom line is revenue, expense, need. Now, you can temper some of the expense with some factor of altruism. There's a value. I'm not going to use cost as more of a word of value. But as a taxpayer, there's still a limit. If you've got, 80% of the counties already in the state of New Hampshire have eliminated farms, 8 out of 10.
Yep.
There's a message there as well. Doesn't mean the other two can go away. Maybe it's just highlighting the effect. There's a different approach that must be made. Now, whether it's getting a bunch of people, maybe selling parts of the property off, the demographics are changing as well. I haven't heard anybody talk about demographics. And I look at this room, I see some younger generations, I'm 70 years old myself, and say, our town itself, I'm from Moultonborough, we're trying to stick them a little bit about thinking about demographics, about where we're going to be 5 to 10 years, not just in the state, not just in this town, but in the whole country. The country is aging. Well, maybe pieces of the property. How many acres you say? 800 acres?
It's about 800.
What about builders? Can builders pick up a chunk of this and put up some senior communities? No. Well, I'm saying, get that word. Well, we tried another way. Do you need 800 acres? I'm only saying, as a taxpayer, you can have all the altruism in the world. And by the way, it's still taxpayers to get you elected. I'm done.
Just if I could pick up on that, a few years back, hold that thought, please. No, go ahead, you go first, go ahead. Yes, sir.
I attended one meeting of the farm committee, and I know the farm is under a lot of discussion, but I think we all need to remind ourselves that any of these county assets need to have a mission assigned as to what its function is. And I think that in the tour that I had today, I would probably look at the essential features of what the existing mission statement might be for the farm, which is, you know, the agricultural part of it, the hay, the wood, the vegetables, and so forth. And I think that taking that mission into account, you must look at what the expenses are to run those missions, the mission and the submissions. My gut feeling says that if you pare down the expenses that are associated with each one of those functions and get them accurately stated, that perhaps the farm, within the umbrella of its current mission, is not operating at a loss. Now, in terms of defining what the mission should be, should it have an agricultural component only? Should it have education? All of those decisions, I think, follow after we determine exactly what the real expenses are of the farm. And those decisions ought to be open to the general electorate. We need to know what the present situation really is. And I think that's what has to be done quickly. Because, you know, what we're doing now is sort of expanding the mission and thinking that the expansion is going to save the day relative to the current expenses, and we don't know what those expenses are. So that's my observation on all of this.
And I think that was what I and the committee have tried to convey, is that the first thing we need to do is to get those numbers. It's difficult to plan for a future if you don't know where you are now.
Well, that and also the future in terms of the discussions that are going on are really more of an expansion. And the feeling is, well, if we expand, then we can save ourselves. But let's find out if we really have something to save here first. I mean, that's...
Yes, and I agree with that. And I think that's been the sense of the committee as well. Let's find out where we are right now. But I just want to pick up on this gentleman's comment that I saw a study a few years back, maybe others have seen it. They're talking about trends. And trends to me are always a little unnerving because trends can change. But what they were saying is if the present trend continues by 2050, which unfortunately isn't that far away, over half the population in Carroll County will be 65 or over. And I found that pretty disturbing because, not that I'm in that group, but the fact is that, you know, there are going to be greater demands. The demographics are changing. And so we need to respond and change those demographics as well. And I'm not saying that the county farm is the answer to all of that, but certainly it's a part of a changing landscape. And so, you know, we need to be looking at a lot of different things. And I hope that you leave, if nothing else, with one thing today, and that is that this committee, which is created by the commissioners, basically is trying to take a look at a lot of those aspects as well. We're looking at all of them. We live in what I call a non-linear world. And by that I mean everything is interconnected and interdependent on something else. And to try to take just one thing out and say, okay, let's solve this problem without realizing how its impact will affect other problems we're dealing with as well is basically not going to solve anything.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
You too.
Thank you.
Happy weekend.